Remember in our chemistry read, thinking he had brought such a lovable cynicism to this character that not a lot of people, I think,
Rachel Zegler's tumultuous year has taken yet another difficult turn. As insiders reveal, she was brought to tears upon learning that director Marc Webb, who had once been a vocal supporter of her casting in Disney's live actions, Snow White, has now quietly withdrawn the glowing praise he initially offered.
Do you want to build a snowman? I will start to cry, so let's move on.
So does my dad.
Yeah.
So does my dad.
Marc Webb's early endorsement of Rachel Zegler was meant to silence critics. He famously hailed her as a generational talent, claiming no one else could portray Snow White with such authenticity. That glowing quote was widely circulated in press kits, magazine features, and fan discussions for months. However, in the wake of the film's disastrous box office performance and the intense backlash that followed, sources say Webb has privately expressed regret over making such bold statements, admitting to studio insiders that he now wishes he had simply let Zegler's performance speak for itself.
Never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending.
Shift hit Zegler hard. Already reeling from a wave of negative headlines, she was devastated to learn that the very director who had discovered her was now backing away. To one friend, she described it as the final knife. Insiders say the timing couldn't have been worse. Zegler was still emotionally processing a tense emergency meeting with Disney's legal team, where she was confronted with accusations of violating promotional guidelines and damaging the studio's most cherished IP. Just as she was grappling with that, news of Webb's reversal arrived via text. One witness recalled her reading the message, staring blankly at the wall for nearly a minute, then leaving the room visibly shaken.
Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen.
Their work makes the impossible seem possible.
With breathtaking ambition, they create magic that wraps its arms around our wildest imaginations.
Here are the nominees for Best Visual.
For a performer who climbed from YouTube covers to starring in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, Marc Webb's endorsement once felt like validation that she'd truly earned her place among Hollywood's elite. Now, seeing that praise quietly erased highlights just how drastically the Snow White narrative has shifted. It's no longer just a box office flop, it's morphed into a full-blown industry cautionary tale. And Rachel Zegler is learning firsthand how quickly allies can vanish when a film goes from most anticipated to most infamous.
He's saved by the prince, and she's the proactive one.
Okay, but why? Why? This is the part I really liked about the Barbie movie when they said, why can't there just be an ordinary Barbie? I loved that. Because the point of Snow White's fairy tale, isn't that she's gonna try and become a leader. That was never in the original fairy tale, that's not part of Snow White's story. She's not supposed to be this girl boss, leader, queen, feminist icon. And I don't know why every reimagining, it has to be that the woman is in a position of power.
Because we are in a matriarchy, sir. That's why.
Snow White in the original fairy tale survived 3 different assassination attempts. She lives for free in the dwarf's house and just bakes whatever she wants. She makes her own food. She's pretty much free to do whatever she wants. And Snow White was manipulated into taking a bite of that apple. It wasn't because she wasn't proactive enough or because she wasn't, this feminist, go-getting leader woman. She took a bite of that apple because she was manipulated to. There was a really powerful older woman who was manipulated.
Webb's reversal didn't happen in a vacuum. The film's second-week box office nosedive, staggering 66% drop, sent shockwaves through Disney, spooking executives and unsettling everyone involved in the production. Internal analysts warned it could become one of the studio's worst-performing live-action releases ever. As the financial fallout deepened, so did the blame game. Behind the scenes, crew members said Webb had grown increasingly frustrated during late-stage reshoots, particularly as the script shifted away from a classic fairy tale romance and toward what some described as a lecture in modern values. Initially, Webb defended Zegler, framing her controversial comments about stalker princes and outdated tropes as signs of her intelligence and modern perspective. But once audiences began abandoning the film and mass leaving theaters, so empty that viral videos showed entire rows unoccupied, Webb reportedly concluded that staying silent was the safest move.
Son, of Disney producer Mark Platt, a guy named Jonah Platt. Someone commented on his page, "Hey, your dad, what kind of jerk is he to fly to New York and censor a 20-year-old girl?" He just fired back. This is like 30 minutes ago. "You really want to do this? My dad, the producer of an enormous piece of Disney IP with hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand a 20-year-old employee for dragging her personal politics into the middle of promoting the movie for which she signed a multi-million-dollar contract to get paid and do publicity. This is called adult responsibility and accountability. And her actions clearly hurt the film's box office. Free speech does not mean you're allowed to say whatever you want in your private employment without repercussions. Tens of thousands of people worked on the film. She hijacked the conversation for her own immature desires at the risk of all the colleagues and crew and blue-collar workers who depend on that movie and its success. Narcissism is not something to be coddled."
The silence didn't last. Word soon leaked that Webb had been telling colleagues he may have spoken to Sunand too boldly in his early praise of Zegler. An unmistakable walkback that felt like a public slap in the face. For Zegler, already in an emotional tailspin over Webb's retreat, the sting was only deepened by the steady stream of internal criticism from those connected to Snow White. Jonah Platt, son of powerhouse producer Marc Platt, publicly slammed her for blending political advocacy with film promotion, accusing her of single-handedly alienating large segments of the audience.
Why, in order to make a film more progressive, the woman can't have a focus on love or finding true love. They almost act like it's something to make fun of. When even in the original cartoon, she sings one song about finding her true love, the prince is in the movie for like a minute. Snow White wanted to find true love. That's fine, most of us do. She didn't really set out to be a leader. Not all of us do. Sometimes you just want to be in the middle of a forest baking pies. And some of us want to be saved by a prince. I know I do.
Even he gets it. We just want to be out in the forest baking pies. We want to watch a movie sometimes that shows a nice, happy ending, and it's...
Their collaborators soon began to pull back as well. Co-star Andrew Burnap, who had once believed Snow White would launch him into mainstream stardom, was reportedly disheartened, privately expressing fears that his scenes might be cut entirely if Disney chooses to re-edit the film for streaming. Even Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen, has maintained a noticeably cold distance. Tensions reportedly escalated after Zegler's pro-Palestine tweet sparked backlash that clashed with Gadot's vocal support for Israelan incident serious enough that Disney had to provide additional security for the cast.
Big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Or labeling the original film weird.
Weird.
Every headline, every viral soundbite seemed to point the finger squarely at Rachel Zegler. As the backlash against Snow White intensified, the public narrative crystallized. Her interviews had driven a wedge between the film and the family audiences Disney was counting on. From talk show appearances to press junkets, Zegler's remarks often touching on empowerment, independence, and critiques of traditional fairy tale tropes were increasingly framed not as bold or refreshing, but as polarizing and out of step with the film's core demographic. This growing perception is what ultimately prompted Disney's legal team to take action. Sources close to the production say Zegler was called into an emergency meeting at the studio's Burbank headquarters. A tense, high-stakes encounter that reflected just how seriously Disney viewed the situation. She didn't come alone. Flanked by her own legal counsel, Zegler arrived prepared to defend her statements and, more importantly, her role in how the film had been marketed. Inside the meeting, things reportedly grew heated. Zegler and her team argued that she had not gone rogue, but had, in fact, followed the studio's lead. According to those familiar with the exchange, she claimed that Disney had actively encouraged her to speak out on themes of female empowerment, independence, and modernizing the classic princess narrative. Her interviews, she contended, were merely extensions of a campaign crafted by the studio itself, one designed to position Snow White as a progressive reimagining of an old tale for a new generation. But the studio pushed back hard. Disney's lawyers insisted that while general themes of empowerment were part of the film's messaging, no one had authorized some of the more inflammatory remarks, especially those in which Zegler described the prince character as a creepy stalker or dismissed the original storyline as outdated and irrelevant. To Disney executives, such comments didn't just go off script. They actively undermined the film's appeal and alienated core audiences, particularly families and nostalgic fans of the original 1937 classic. The meeting ended without a public resolution, but the damage was already spreading. Excerpts from Zegler's interviews continued to circulate across social media, often stripped of context, feeding into a larger backlash that painted her as disrespectful of Disney tradition and out of touch with audiences. Online, the narrative hardened. Zegler had helped tank her own movie. Internally, some at Disney began to view her not as a misunderstood lead, but as a liability. For Zegler, the fallout from that meeting marked a turning point. What had started as a dream role had unraveled into a crisis, with even her defenders beginning to retreat, and as the studio scrambled to salvage the film's reputation, one thing became increasingly clear: Rachel Zegler had become the face not of Disney's next great princess but of a cautionary tale in modern Hollywood marketing.
This video, but you know what pisses me off about it? Like, obviously it's annoying that they're changing the whole story, they didn't cast any dwarf. What makes me so annoyed is how smug they are about it. Like, I'm just so sick of celebrities and people with fame and money and power. Like, they're just in a constant circle jerk with each other all the time. And we're just like forced to participate in it. I want fantasy. I don't want more, you need to work and you need to be a leader. And like, I don't want to do any of those things. I want my Prince Charming. I want him to kiss me on the lips and I want him to think I'm the most beautiful girl